Hey guys, welcome back to Innovation. My name is Mitch. Today we're going to be checking out the trike over here. This is the Bull from Emojo. We're going to talk about it. It's got a really nice step through height. Got a couple of cool features here. We're going to dive into that and we're going to do it right now. So let's head over to the trike. As I mentioned, this is the Bull from Emojo. Couple of cool things right off the bat is we have got this super low step over height here. 8.5 inches to the bottom makes this thing super duper approachable. So I mean, you can just adjust this a little bit. Yeah, my foot is barely off the ground here to get through here. So if you're looking for something that is super approachable, something you can get on and off really easily, I haven't ever tested a trike that is this easy to get on and off, or a bike for that matter. I mean, this is 8.5 inches that's nothing. Basically, you know, still enough clearance I think for riding around. I don't think we're gonna be in trouble of hitting that bottom bracket on anything, but yeah, it's very interesting. Let's start with some of the main specs that you guys probably care about. The first one is gonna be the motor. Up here in the front we've got 500 watt brushless motor, and it is in the front as opposed to being in the rear. So there are some considerations when it comes to front tire motors. The first one is going to be, this is much more of a pulling sensation than a pushing sensation, which you have with a lot of the e-bikes that we ride, where the motors are back here, sort of pushes you along. This really does feel like it pulls you. A couple of different aspects to the ride feel that makes it slightly different than that is that when you go to pull up a hill, it generally has less traction because all your weight is here in the back. So that is something to look at. We do have some decent tires here with some decent grip, so not necessarily something most people are going to look at and go like, oh, that's going to be a deal breaker for me. Just something to consider if you got a lot of hills or a lot of small steep spurts. Having something with your motor up here in the front, just a little less traction than something in the rear. You might get a little bit of slippage, and that's just something to consider when it comes to these front hubs here. The second most important thing on an electric bike after the motor is going to be the battery. So the battery we have is right back here. Now this is a removable battery. This is 48 volt, 14 amp hours. So this is something where you can just, it's got a nice little grip here. You can pull it out. You can also check the state of the charge here by pressing this button. You can see that from there. There's some lights here, tells you how much juice we've got. We've got a full charge, so she's ready to roll. Now, when it comes to range on this particular battery, I've seen 3 different numbers from Emojo. A lot of the written stuff on the website says 65 miles. Some of it says 30 miles, some of it says 45 miles. Now, based on my experience, that 45 miles is probably closer to what you'd get. You're still talking about like lower levels of pedal assist, generally relatively flat ground, and probably somebody on the smaller side of things. The weight capacity here is 300 pounds, so it's quite a bit, but somebody who's 300 pounds, probably using a little bit more pedal assist, they're probably not going to get the 45 miles out of the 14 amp hour battery. Now they do offer an option, which is a double battery. So you see this one's mounted over here. You can mount another battery here, and then you're talking about getting 90 miles. 45 times 2, that's 90. That's simple math. So, more like 80 miles is probably a good estimate, I would say, based on my experience with the trike and just understanding, batteries and motors and how that sort of stuff works. So, all in all, pretty good. And also, all of this for a price that's under $2,000 with a trike, which is impressive. We get a lot of trikes. Generally, they start to creep up to that $2,500, $3,000 range. So having something that is, small, compact, easy to get on and off, sub 2,000 bucks is pretty impressive. Now the next thing we'll talk about is the saddle here, just because that's one of the cooler features in my opinion. We have this nice big fat Emojo branded saddle here, and it comes with a backrest, which is honestly pretty handy. Very comfortable. I like the saddle quite a bit. And the addition of the backrest makes this nice and comfortable. So if you wanted to sit on it, like I'm about to, you sit on it, you can, lean back a little bit, and this is comfortable. It feels like a bar stool or something like that. So not bar stool sports, just a regular bar stool. And yeah, honestly, it's a fairly comfortable thing to just sit on. So if you were going for a ride and you wanted to sit down on it for a little bit, this is something that feels pretty comfortable. So as far as comfort goes, it's all right. Now, there's one thing when it comes to comfort, and it's ride position. So when it comes to ride position, we do have an adjustable stem here, which is nice. Now you can see I've got this in the full upright position, basically. And that's because in order for me to get a good pedal geometry between here and the bottom bracket there where the pedals are, this needs to be a little bit higher. So in my opinion, this could probably come up a little bit, and handlebars could maybe be a little bit higher to get a little bit more of an upright riding feel to it. But it's not too shabby like it is now, but I definitely do have this pretty much maxed out as high as it can go to get something that's pretty comfortable. And if you hear me choking and breathing weird, it's because it's I think it's 18 degrees out here right now. My hands are cold, and every once in a while the wind will whip me and kind of take my breath away a little bit, but I'm okay. I'll be fine. I got a warm spot to go check it afterwards. For brakes, we have got mechanical brakes. Now normally that is a con, right? We like to see brakes that are hydraulic, but on this one we do get the option of having these cool little parking brake pins you can push in. You just got to pull it hard enough. The wind's really the winds really pick it up, so I might pause real quick and then we'll come back when the wind dies down a little bit. Okay, bye. All right, now I am a little bit more appropriately dressed for the weather we're having. It looks beautiful, but it is chilly out here. So we took a little break. Let's get back to the brakes. Like I mentioned, we do have mechanical brakes here. The rotors we have, pop down here, we got 180 rotors on the front and the rear. Pretty sure these are also, yeah, those are 180s on the back as well. So we got 3 total brakes. We got the one up in the front, and then we've got 2, one for each wheel back here, which is nice, some additional safety. As I was mentioning, when you have mechanical brakes, it is a little bit of a disadvantage. Now when it comes to the trike, we've got 3 brakes instead of 2, so that kind of helps us out a little bit. But one of the cool things you get with these mechanical brakes, which you don't see in a lot of hydraulic brakes, are the locks here. So we can pull this brake back, push this button in here. This is going to lock our front brake, so our bike doesn't really move. I can pull it because it's not like fully all the way down, but we can do the same thing on this side. We can pop that down, pop it down real good, press this in. Now the whole bike is locked, and we can't really mess around with it. So that's a nice thing. In order to take it off, all I gotta do is pull the brakes again. Let's pop out. Kaboom, and we are in business. So brake wise, not a huge deal. Obviously it would be cool to see hydraulic brakes, but we do get this little benefit of being able to lock the brakes out, which if you've ever ridden a trike, you know that it can be kind of annoying. If you set it on a slope, because it's perfectly balanced, it can just run away from you, which kind of sucks if there's a fancy car at the bottom of the hill there. Not speaking from personal experience, but I would imagine that's how that scenario goes. So brake wise, braking is pretty good. Definitely feel like I've got control of the bike. We're only going 20 miles per hour, right? So even though these are mechanical, they do stop the trike pretty well, which is pretty nice. So going on to the electronics on here. Go ahead and sit down because it's just a comfortable little seat. Here we've got our display. This is an Emojo branded display, but this is something we've seen for quite a while. It's a display that we're pretty familiar with. To turn it on, we're going to press and hold the middle button right here. This is going to show us our battery, our odometer. We've got our speed, what mode we're in, and how much wattage we're pulling, which is nice. If we press this mode button again, it'll go back to trip. So you can see your trip and total odometer right there. And then to go up and down on the pedal assist levels, we're going to go up here, 5. This is going to change our power to standard or stud mode, eco, and off in 0. And in 0, the throttle still works. So something just to be aware of, if you have it on 0, somebody's trying out the bike for the first time, this throttle is still going to work, which is something to note. So we'll go ahead and put it in pedal assist level 1. Now from pedal assist level 1, if we start riding it, which we're not because we've got more components to talk about, we can either start with our throttle, boom, right here, or we can just pedal like this, and we'll get going. So you can do it either that. Again, stopping here is pretty easy. Now if we press and hold the top button here, we'll see our little light icon over here in the bottom, and that is going to turn on our front light right here. Now this front light is not incredibly bright. This is a little bit of a smaller light, but having it mounted up here on the basket is kind of nice in my opinion. Now sometimes when they're mounted to the front forks, the light will turn, and you see like if it was mounted there, it would turn with the wheel. This is going to keep it straight towards the front from the basket. So just something to keep, note of. If you're used to riding something right there, used to the light kind of turning around, it's not going to turn because it's attached to the basket, which is attached to the frame. So it's not going to turn like this. So something to note. Speaking of front baskets, we've got this Emojo branded front basket right here. It does have a bit of a slant towards the bottom. So I believe this is right at about 14 inches or so. I think it's like 14 by 11-ish, I would say. And at the bottom, it probably loses about 2 inches both ways. So what did I say, 14 by 7, so it's probably 12 by 5 here at the bottom. So, not a whole lot of cargo space, but this is a smaller trike. If you look at this, or if you've seen a trike, usually they're bigger. When I first got this one out of the box, I was like, oh, this is actually a pretty small, compact trike, which is nice. Nothing super small, right? Like electric or rad, some of those like small mini compact ones, but definitely it's not a huge trike like some of the trikes that we're used to seeing. So kind of a smaller compact basket here in the front. In the rear, we've got a much larger basket, and it's not very deep. So this is where our battery is, like we mentioned before. So right here, it's probably about 3.5 inches deep, I would say, but pretty wide. It's like 21 by 24, something in that neighborhood. We've got this nice Emojo branded bamboo board on the top, so you can fit quite a bit of stuff back here. It's just not super deep. Some of the baskets we see are real baskets that come up to maybe about here or so, and that's just something to note. If you got something that has sort of like hard sides to it and it fits in here, awesome. But if you're looking for something with a lot of support kind of on the sidewalls, this particular basket that it comes with doesn't really have that. So just something to note. And then over here, since we're down here, we have got, well, I guess we'll talk about, we got a rear light here, which is nice. I don't think this thing has brake integration. Let me see. So no brake integration. I was testing the light on my foot. On some bikes, when you pull the brake lever, it will, flash, letting people know you're coming to a stop, which is a nice safety feature. We don't see that here on this particular one, though. So wrapping up the lights, moving on to fenders and tires. We do have full fenders on this thing. Each of these sides has these nice, they're metal, but they're just like the right size, in my opinion. They look sleek, they look sturdy, and they're not overly wide, but they are wide enough to keep all that gunk and stuff in here where it needs to be. The tires we have here are these 20 by 2.5 inch tires. So they're a smaller tire when it comes to a lot of the trikes that we've tested, and usually they're, fat tire trikes. So seeing a 2.5 inch tire in here is interesting. We've got a nice, more like a street tread to them. It's not necessarily like a mountain bike tread or something you want to do a whole lot of off-roading with. Definitely feels like they're kind of got like a nice gumminess to them. And I, out here on this concrete that we're riding around on, get a great grip. So don't really have too many complaints about the tires themselves. So tires wise, I think they have a pretty good tire here, and I really do like these fenders. Up here in the front, we've got our matching fender. Again, this is metal. It's nice, it's sleek, it kind of has like a bit of a beveled edge to it, which makes it look pretty nice. Swinging around here, we have got our controller box. So this is where the brain sits, right here in the back. Not a terrible placement for it. It looks like they might have had room to mount it maybe back underneath here, kind of leave this clear, and maybe has a little bit more of a sleek design, but not too bad, not too big, and it is black, so it matches a lot of the other stuff here. We've got our chain ring here, a little bit of a smaller chain ring. We'll get into how that affects the ride feel here in a little bit. We've got these plastic, pretty flat pedals here. All in all, not too shabby. The paint job, which might not be coming through so good on the GoPro, it's got this little bit of a shine to it. It's a very nice color. It's a very, very cool red. Definitely something that catches your attention, and especially in the sun, get a little bit of that sparkle. It definitely seems like it's kind of deep and has a nice vibe to it. So that's most of the specs, guys. We talked about the brakes. We talked about some of the different carrying options we got with the front basket and the rear basket. We talked about brakes. We talked about motor. I talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the gearing that we have here. So we've got our Shimano SIS index shifter. As you guys know, I'm a pro Shimano SIS index shifter. These are cheaper. They're a little bit tough to work with when you get into the repairs and stuff like that, but functions really well, super user friendly. Not a lot of issues when it comes to these, in my opinion. For this bike at this price point, would I put one of these on my own personal bikes? Probably not, right? I've been riding bikes for 10, 12 years at this point pretty seriously, so this isn't something that I would necessarily want on my mountain bikes. I've got a lot of trigger shifters, things like that. There's other brands to look at other than Shimano, but this particular one I think makes a lot of sense on this bike at the price point and the fact that it's so user friendly. The cockpit here, we do have sort of these swept back bars. They do sweep up a little bit as well. So these ones, they do have a nice cruiser feel to them. In my opinion, they could be maybe a little bit longer, kind of give us a little bit more of a, maybe something more about here. A little bit of a different angle, a little bit of a wider stance would be interesting, but don't really have, complaints about it. Just that would be something that would be cool to see on the next version of the bike. When it comes to grips, we have these leather grips here. Now, they don't move, which is nice, right? They've got these things on here nice. They're probably glued on well, stuck well, and also I'm using gloves so I don't get a great grip on here. But seeing something with at least one locking mechanism, if not two, would definitely be something that we'd want to see on future versions of the bike. I'm a big safety guy, so a couple things we don't see: sidewall reflective stripes on the side, which would be nice to see. We don't have double locking mechanisms here. And then kind of going back to the mechanical brakes, again, we've got 3 of them, so they do a really good job. But again, seeing hydraulic brakes would be another safety thing. Maybe looking at a brighter light. Now this is sort of a plug and play deal here, so there's probably lots of options we could go and swap this out for. But all in all, for the price that you pay, this is not a bad trike, not a bad E-trike, if you will, this bull from Emojo. I think that is most of the specs, most of the stuff we talked about already, whether it was before the break, after we got on our fancy clothes, so we stay a little bit warmer. So I think now it is time for us to take this thing out and really test out what all these components perform like when we use the bike. So we'll go ahead and do the ride test. All right, guys, we are out here for the ride test on the bull from Emojo. Let's go ahead and turn it on. You're gonna hit this power button right over here on the left-hand side. Hold it down. Boom, screen's gonna turn on. Now it starts out in pedal assist level 1. So we can go ahead and let's just test the throttle right out the gate. It's gonna show us our wattage that we're using, our speed, and we are cruising. You're not terribly loud for a front end motor. Usually because it's closer to you, it's got a little bit more of a noise, but we hit 20 miles per hour pretty quick. Again, that's pedal assist level 1, and it looks like we've got access to the full throttle no matter what level of pedal assist we're in, even if that's 0, which is nice. That's a nice safety thing to have. So if you are, running around and you're in a lower level of pedal assist and you need to punch it, you need to get through a situation, something comes up, distracted driver, whatever it is nice that you can hammer on that throttle. You can get out of the situation where you need to go. Now, when it comes to turning, there is a rear differential, which we didn't really talk about in the specs section. Probably should have spent some time chatting about it. But what that means is that the rear tires are going to turn at different speeds, right? So that allows us to make a 0-degree turn, which is pretty sweet. I mean, that is a 0-degree turn right here, because our 2 rear tires are turning at different speeds. Allows us to make some really, really tight turns. And as you are turning, say, around a corner, it's going to allow the tires turn at different speeds. And I'm just gonna say it again, the tires turn at different speeds. Okay, that's the last time I say it. So the tires are back there, and as they are doing what they're doing, right, because I'm not gonna say it again, then it allows us to be a little bit more sturdy with how we maneuver. It's gonna allow the tires to stay on the ground, meaning that we can make tighter turns, safer turns, and in the end, we're a little bit safer. So that is pretty cool. I'm going to tighten up this seat post just a smidge here. Aren't I? Man, these gloves are not great for making adjustments. Tell you what, just need to tighten it up a smidge. There we go. And then we'll get back to it. So let's go ahead. We did the throttles. Now let's go ahead and do the pedal assist levels. Now this is a cadence bike, so all that means is it has magnets in the bottom, and as the magnets rotate, it lets us know if we need power or not. And we need power. So we're in pedal assist level. I'll start out in 0. And we are in first gear over here. Pretty nice and easy to pedal. Shifts through the gears real nice. So that is not too shabby. Go ahead and shift back down. Now let's put in pedal assist level 1. So I can't tell if I'm getting anything from the motor. It might be we're going a little too fast at that 5 miles per hour here. So let's go ahead and slow down, do some rotations. Yeah, so about that 3 miles per hour is where pedal assist level 1 wants to be. See where 2 takes us to. 2's around 7 or so, and we don't get any more power if we put it in work because this isn't a torque sensor. So I'll go ahead and do it. 3, starting to pick up a little bit here in 3. Should take us to about 9.5, I'd say. Pedal assist level 4. Kind of gets us to about 12.5, and then 5 should take us up to that 20 miles per hour. Now right about 15, let's see, so it looks like, yeah, we're getting 200 watts here, taking us to about 16 miles per hour, so should take us up to 20, but if we stop and hit the throttle does take us up to 20. Go ahead and pull the brakes here. Nice, easy stopping. You know, we could get picky about mechanical versus hydraulic, but in the end, they stop the bike really well, and that's the safest thing. So as we're skedoodling, again, we can hit 20 miles per hour with throttle only. We start pedaling. The throttle overrides, which is nice. Some bikes, if you're holding on the throttle and going 20 and you're in a different level of pedal, so you start pedaling, it sort of overrides whatever the throttle's doing. So the fact that we can do that is pretty cool. But I am a little bit confused why pedal assist level 5 isn't going to 20 miles per hour. Might be something we could adjust in the settings down here. But this is a pretty peppy pace to be going. Now I sort of teased that we'd be getting into, so we're gonna get into ghost pedaling, which is when you're pedaling and the bike is going faster than your gearing allows you to pedal and put in some work. But it is pretty quick at that 15 miles per hour. It is a pretty quick cadence that we're on. So I would think that, you know, if we were up at the 20 miles per hour, that would probably be a little bit better. But as it stands right now, it really isn't that bad, but it is a little quick. Only having the 7 gears here. But the nice thing is, because it's cadence, all you have to do is keep rotating. So now I'm ghost pedaling, but I'm doing it on purpose, right? I'm just going real slow, and I'm still getting that top speed of, 15.5, 16 miles per hour here. Then if I want to pedal, this is sort of your cadence for going that fast. A little quick of a cadence for this speed, but then if you want to go 20, you just let go and you just do some cruising with the throttle. As far as stability goes, it feels pretty stable. Feels like it's actually going to be really hard for me to throw this thing on 2 wheels. Pulls really nicely to kind of keep you stable. Yeah, I mean, let's see if I can throw it onto 2 wheels. Usually you can just, there we go. Now that's 2 wheels right there. But you gotta set that up. You've got to, really, I mean, you gotta try to go on 2 wheels, because if I was going like, our speed, trying to turn, you gotta throw your weight way over there to get this thing up on 2 wheels. So if we're going to like 10 miles per hour, we just want to turn both wheels on the ground the whole time. And realistically, that's probably the quickest you want to turn. You probably maybe doing some swerving, which if we're doing some swerving here, still tires are on the both tires are on the ground. So it does feel really stable. We were on a trike, I don't know, last year at some point. I don't remember what the trike was, but it had smaller tires, smaller speed, and the thing was just pretty unstable. I mean, if I was doing this on the other trike, it would turn over, but this one is just staying right on the ground. Both tires, both directions. Yeah, that feels pretty darn sturdy for a trike, if you ask me. And again, if we want to throw it up on 2 wheels, we can. But I mean, you're talking about like, you gotta lean and set that thing and set it up. And I'm just showing off on two tires here. But in reality, that is gonna be tough to do. So if you need to swerve out of the way of something, both tires still on the ground, both tires still on the ground, still on the ground. That is cool. Very nimble and feels very safe and stable. And so for somebody who's looking for a trike like this, just usually stability is something they're looking at, right? Because if they are super stable and they didn't really want a trike, they just get a regular bike and worry about their own stability. But when it comes to looking for something that is going to be their source of stability, having something that actually is stable is pretty darn nice. Go ahead and do another braking test here real quick. See if we can get up to our max speed of 20 here. Right about here. Wow. That was about 10 feet. 20 miles per hour, mechanical brakes, stopping at 10 feet is pretty darn awesome. And again, we come up over here, we slow down, we stop. Now we're on a bit of an incline up, so the trike's gonna wanna roll back, right? But if we go back up here, pull our brakes, put in our brake levers, nothing. So that is a cool feature for a trike to have for sure. And guys, I think we pretty much covered everything on the Bull here. We talked about specs, we talked about the riding experience, we went out and rode, we gave you that experience. But if there's any other questions you have for either myself about the bike, something I didn't cover, any corrections, I know people on the internet, they like to do corrections, so if you got any of those, I am open to it. I'd rather be right than right, you know what I'm saying? And so guys, I think that's gonna do it. If you got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll catch ya on the next one.